All right. Good afternoon. In order to ensure that we all have the information needed for you to proceed with the application process of the City of Evanston's Local Reparations Initiative, I would like to provide you with a run of show for this afternoon. The first 15 so minutes will be an opportunity for us to go over the application process, as well as be a chance for you to see where information is located on our city website. And then after that information has been dispensed, we will give you an opportunity to ask questions. We would like to ensure that folks' questions are being asked in a way that you are able to feel the answers being answered. So what we're asking you today is, if you are interested in answering a question, instead of using the chat, please raise your hand. And when you raise your hand, we will then add you into the panelists screen, for which you can ask your question, and then we will put you back as an attendee. So if I go ahead now, I'm looking at how many people are online. I'm going to go ahead and get started because I want to make sure we are ending on time. And as people arrive, we will let them know that if they have a question, to raise their hand. But before we get started, I have the pleasure of introducing Ms. Erica Alexander. If you know that over the last few months, if you've attended some of our community meetings as well as our committee meetings, you've seen a camera crew. Well, I'd like to introduce the reason why we have that camera crew this afternoon, and I'll hand it over to Ms. Alexander to introduce herself and the project for which those camera crews are here to record.
Thank you, Kimberly. Hello, everybody. And this is exciting stuff. I'm so glad and grateful to be invited here. I'm here with my co-director, Whitney Dow, and we're going to tell you what we've been up to. And yes, you might have seen some of you doing it. But I also want to thank everyone for the opportunity to speak and be allowed in this very important process that is historic on many levels. First, for me as a Black American, to be a witness to history, as an American, to be a witness to American history and world history, and to meet all of you who've changed the game. So thank you so much. What we've been doing is, in 2019, we started filming a reparations documentary in DC, Washington, DC. We were following the Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee with HR 40. As you know, HR 40 is a bill to study reparations, and it had been put forward in Congress for 30 years from the great John Conyers from Michigan, Detroit, and they never accepted it to even be voted on. When he left Congress, she took up the task and kept moving. And in Juneteenth 2019, they actually got a hearing on it, and Ta-Nehisi Coates was there, and many people, Danny Glover, and we were there to film that. Later on, a few months later, we heard about a bill in Evanston, Illinois, that had been adopted and pushed through by Robin Rue Simmons and her council members. And we wanted to understand what it was all about. So we made a fast break to Evanston, Illinois, and on a very cold winter's day to attend a very incredible event at a church. And we met the reparations organizations and leaders from all over the country, as well as local politicians and a huge chunk of the Evanston community, both Black and white, as you packed into a beautiful church in Evanston's 5th Ward, as I remember, to celebrate the passing of this new bill. We were amazed that we were able to capture that. And when we started to realize that this was historic, that it had never been done, we thought we should shift our film to capturing what was happening in Evanston. And so we have been following you as you've implemented the nation's first ever reparations law. And we've had unique access to you, to Alderwoman Simmons, to your many citizens, to many of the council people, the change in the guard that's recently happening, as well as Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. We've done this through COVID. We've done this through the George Floyd, Jacob Blake, all the things that have been happening. We've tried to keep up with you. It hasn't been easy because you guys have been flying and moving and things have been churning, but you have been so gracious over these years to help us document this for history's sake. So for the last nearly 2 years, we've been filming in Evanston as well as Washington, D.C. And that's mostly it. And we're still doing it. And that's what we're here now. We'd love to tell you a little bit more about what we're going to be doing, I think, on Monday. So Whitney, why don't you take it from there?
Hi, everybody. Yeah, first of all, I want to thank again, Kimberly, Tashik, and allowing us to be here and participate in this. It's been really wonderful to be part of this whole thing, and we really appreciate you inviting us in. Yes, we've been filming as Erica said, we've been filming, for the last 2 years. You're coming to the end of the process. We're coming to the end of the process, and now we really would like to. Reason why we're on this call specifically is we'd like to meet and film with people who are applying for the reparations fund. And we'd like to hear your stories, hear what how you've been affected by the history of Evanston, what the money could potentially do for you. But we want to be able to find some people we could come to their house and talk to about as they fill out the and be with them and fill it as they fill out the application. So then we're also going to be at the Fleetwood Jourdain on Monday, filming with people who are coming in to fill out the application in person there. So we'll be doing filming there. So we're not sure what day, depending on, we'll work out the schedule with you when we would be able to come to your home, what days we did that. But what we're going to do is, I think that Tashik or Kimberly are going to put in the chat a phone number and an email. You can reach out to us at either one of those, either by text if that's easier, or by email. And then if you're interested to have us come and film with you. And then we'll contact you right away and we'll start talking through the process. And hopefully, we look forward to meeting you and either in one of those times. And once again, want to thank you so much for allowing us to do this. It's been incredible to be, as I think Erica aptly said, be witness to history, and what you're doing here is historic, and we're really excited to be able to be the ones to document.
I just want to say one more thing because I forgot. I did not really introduce myself, and it racks people's brains like, yes, I am that actress from Living Single. I played Max. And so I have reinvented myself like, you guys are doing for America. And I'm a director and a producer now with Color Farm Media and Whitney Dow, Verso Films. We've co-directing this in the spirit of the rebuilding of America, as Reverend Barber calls it, the third Reconstruction. We're trying to be good architects and build it together, the telling of the story. But if you know me from my past work, whether it was Cousin Pam or Maxine Shaw was famously an alder woman, but there are no alder people in New York. So they had that wrong, but I was an alder woman on Living Single, and she had her famous thing, Ride the Maverick. So I just have to give a shout out to Chicago for helping me even learn that fun fact. And again, I appreciate all the support over the years for the things I'm doing, the Wu-Tang and the Run the World. And I just want to say thank you, because I wouldn't be here without that type of support and people lifting me up. And so, and Good Trouble was the first thing we produced. And that was my first foray into learning about filmmaking, but also got a chance to give in tribute to the great John Lewis and learn about him. So that's what we're doing here. We're making a film about you and America. There you go.
Thank you so much, Ms. Alexander. And yes, people were going to say, I know that face. She looks familiar. So I'm glad that you were able to share that. With that being said, we're going to go now to the heart of the business. As we are going to be showing you some documents as well as the website, I'm going to turn my camera off and I will turn it back on once we get to the question and answer section of this meeting. As stated, we are in webinar mode. So we are asking folks, if you're interested in asking a question, to raise your hand And at the appropriate time, we will bring you on so that you can ask your question directly to myself, and we will hopefully be able to answer that question for you today. This meeting is being recorded. For those who are unable to attend, we will have this posted on our website sometime in the next couple of days. So for those who aren't able to join this afternoon, we will definitely have this posted later this week. So with that being said, I'm going to turn off my camera so it won't distract you all, and I will ask my guests to do so too, and then let the show begin. All right. Thank you all. Thank you, ma'am. All right. So let's go first. Let me go ahead and share my screen. All right. So let me do some of this. Okay. So you are looking at the Reparations website that is located on the cityofevanston.org webpage. If you're interested in going to the website, I will have Tashik, if you can please place your information in the, place the website information into the chat. Thank you. And I think you probably need to put the speaker mode on me so it won't highlight Alexander. Okay, great. So this is the website. As you see, today you will see on the website that reparations eligibility application has been posted. The link is live. If you click on it, you will be able to go directly to the link. And this is the application that you will be seeing. So the information that we're going to be discussing today is also on the application instruction sheet as well on the website. So I wanted to give you the opportunity to know that the website is now currently open, and the application is available for you to access. The application will be open from Tuesday, September 21st, which is today, and it will run through Friday, November 5th, up until 11:59 p.m. We will likely have the committee review the application by the end of November of 2021. And before I begin, I'm almost remiss to acknowledge our committee members. As you know, we began this process with a subcommittee of the City Council that included at the time Alderman Simmons, Alderman Peter Braithwaite, and Alderman Ann Rainey. As part of that conversation, we were able to understand the importance of expanding the committee to include community members as we continue the process of reviewing and implementing reparations programs through the city. So I want to acknowledge the current committee members, which are currently Councilmember Peter Braithwaite as chair, Councilmember Bobby Burns of the 5th Ward, Councilmember Devon Reed of the 8th Ward, community member Bonnie Lockhart, community member Claire McFarland Barber, community member and former Alderman Robin Ruth Simmons, and community member Carla Sutton. And I also want to acknowledge my colleagues, Tashik Kerr, our assistant to the city manager, and Nicholas Cummings, our corporation counsel, as they also support the committee work. Back in 2019, as stated, the city of Evanston embarked on this journey of going for a commitment of $10 million over 10 years towards local reparations for Black Evanstonians in relation to housing and economic development. The first program, Restorative Housing, which we're going to be speaking about today, was budgeted for $400,000. I just want to let you know, $400,000 of $10 million commitment is only 4% of the budget. So this is the first step, the first start of going towards making our Black community whole. The program is not meant to be the one and only, but just the beginning. So we're excited today to start this process with you so that you are more prepared to apply for the application. Community members who are interested in community members who are interested in learning more about the application process we're going to go over today, there are 3 categories for which one can apply for this program. Each applicant who applies will receive up to $25,000 if you are deemed eligible and are selected for funds. And we'll talk more about that at the end. The first category of applicants, which will be the first prioritized category of review, is called the Ancestor. The Ancestor is a person, African-American, Black resident of Evanston who lived in the city of Evanston and was at least 18 years old at the time between the years of 1919 and 1969. I am going to go ahead and, as you see on the website, under the housing eligibility application, there are sample applications. This is to give you an opportunity to see the questions before you actually submit the application online. The reason that we have the application online is so that your information that you're providing us are secured and only has limited access by approved staff. The information that you will be sharing, your private information, will not be shared with the committee and remain as private documents. The only information the committee will be receiving is a report that I will discuss at the end of this conversation. So if I click on the sample application for Ancestor, you're going to go ahead and it's going to show you that this is the draft application. So the first 3 pages or so is the information that you're going to find on the front page of the application online. This is just breaking down the different categories of eligibility and then the documents that are required for you to be able to move forward with the application. So if you're an Ancestor, the only documents that you will need to provide the city is a current driver's license or government issued ID and a document that shows your residency within Evanston between 1919 and 1969. Remember, you have to be at least 18 at that time. So if you were a minor and your parents were over the age of 18, then you would actually be considered a direct descendant at category. But if you yourself did live in Evanston, was 18 at the time, between that time frame of 1919 and 1969, the only 2 documents that you have to provide is a current government issue ID and a document that shows proof that you're a resident of Evanston. And one thing we'll tell you today are some really neat information for you so that you can get access to that documentation if you lived in Evanston at that time. We're not asking for any social security numbers. We're not asking for anything related to credit scores. We're not asking for any different additional information. We want to keep it as very simple as possible. This is about eligibility. This is not disbursement. And so with that being said, if you're an Ancestor, you're going to receive a document that asks for you to put your name, first and last, your current home address, phone number, and email. Now, if you are an individual who does not have an email, you will need to provide one. And if there's a struggle with that, we'll talk about how you can access our office hours to help assist you with application if you don't have an email address and you need someone else to help. Now, if you have a family member or a trusted friend that can assist you, they are welcome to put their email address in. They will just be receiving the communications. However, we will be providing anyone who's applied at the time of review, letter that will go through the mail, informing you that you were eligible or ineligible to continue with the program. So to continue on, the questions as you see written, do you identify racially as African American Black? Even if you checked no, you were still able to go forth. Are you the age of 18 or older? Now here, if you check no, then you're done. You're not able to move forward because this program, you have to be at least 18 years of age in order for you to qualify for funding. So if you click no, you're not 18 years of age yet, you're not able to move forward to continue the process. But let's say you are 18 and you're an Ancestor. So we know 18 years of age, you have to be in 1969 or before, so you move on. Now, it's going to ask you the question about what eligibility of the program that you want to qualify for, because we know that this is the Ancestor application, that you're an Ancestor. Then it's going to ask you to provide what proof of residency that you can show that confirms that you were living in Evanston between that time period. Here you see a list of documents. Now, I can tell you if you were at a student at School District 65, those records that they would have are lost. We are aware of that. And so what we do have, though, at the public library with the city of Evanston, main library, ETHS High School has yearbooks. And the yearbooks date back far enough to where anyone that's applying for this program should be able to access their yearbook and be able to take a picture to show that that's them. If you're going to use a yearbook picture, I'll also recommend you to take a picture of the cover. So that would say the year, and then take a picture or also have an image of your picture in the yearbook. And so that way that will confirm that you are that person, but also the year that the picture in the yearbook was from. That's it. Once you have that documentation, all you have to do is upload it to the system. It's going to ask you the question right here, attach that document. Once attached, it's going to go and ask you, well, how do you want to use these funds? Now, mind you, even though this is a required question, this doesn't hold you to having to go in that direction if you decide that you want to use your funds differently. You just have three options. Either you can purchase a home in Evanston, make home improvements to your existing home, or reduce home mortgages or balance on your premium on your primary residency. You can check all three. The program does not limit you for how many programs you want to participate in. You just have only up to $25,000 to utilize that funds for. So once you max the $25,000, you have no further funds to tap into, at least through this program. With that being said, I'll go a little bit more deeper into this section after we're done with the other applications, but this is all you have to do as it relates to the Ancestor. You just have to prove your age and you have to prove residency, and that's it. And then you submit that document and you're done. Now, what if you are a direct descendant? What does that mean? How do you ensure that this is something that you would qualify for? Well, going to the direct descendant application, again, the first section is all the same information that we saw in the Ancestor. I'm going to keep going down to where we are going to click on direct descendant. And a direct descendant is defined as at least one parent, grandparent, or great-grandparent who is African-American or Black and at least 18 years of age at the time who lived in Evanston between 1919 and 1969, that you can show a blood linkage to. So it can't be your aunt, it can't be a cousin, it has to be a father, mother, grandparents, great-grandparents, or not. But if it can't be a play cousin, it can't be a friend, it has to be someone that has a blood relation. So if you're a direct descendant, you go ahead, and now what you have to do is be able to identify the relationship of that member. So let's say it's your mom. So go ahead and click on that mother button. You provide that person's name. Now, I do recognize if it is your mom or as a grandmother who may have had a maiden name and then got married. In that situation, go ahead and put both. That is fine. We just want to make sure we're able to connect that. So if your birth certificate has a mother's name on it as her maiden name versus her married name or vice versa, that is fine. We'll accept that. Provide what time period that family lived in, the time period for which you know they first moved into Evanston. So if they moved into Evanston in the 1940s, that's all you have to click on. You don't need to click on every other button. Now, what document that you have of your parent that will show that they were a resident of Evanston? Now, luckily for us at our library that has created a great depository of historical documents for the city, you will find city directories as well as phone directories. Now, I recognize depending on the period, some family households, it may be the male household, it may be the male's name that's listed on those documents. That's fine, because what you can do is go through your father if that makes more sense to show linkage. And if that doesn't, but your mother has the same last name as the male that's listed, just make sure you document that and you can incorporate that documentation. But at the library, you have a list of directories that date back to the 1990s, as well as the ETHS yearbooks, as well as the census data. And then there's also Ancestry.com, which the library can help you with utilizing. They have a paid subscription, so you can utilize their subscription if you have a library card through their website. If not, you have to go to the library directly. So once you have that documentation, now all you need to do is show that they were a resident of Evanston at that time. Now, if you're able to show that through some type of home insurance declaration, you're able to show it through a family Bible or whatever you may have, go ahead and submit that. You're gonna go ahead and submit it right here. And then they're gonna ask you, well, how are you related? What documentation shows your relationship? For many people, it could be a obituary, a birth certificate, some type of baptismal record. Now, here's a caveat. If you are adopted, you will qualify for this because you were legally adopted by that family, even if they're not a blood relation, as long as you show adoption papers. Now, if it wasn't done through the governmental process and it was just something familiar, unfortunately, you have to be able to show some proof that that was a family member, that you were considered a child or a child or grandchild of that family member. So obituaries work, like I said, census data is fine, and then any hospital records or whatnot. Again, the reason why we have this documentation online is so that we can securely access this information that will only be accessible for those verifying your information. Once you're verified, once the information is verified, no one else will have access to it, and your information will be stored away until we are able to delete them. Again, it's going to ask you what fund you want to use your money towards, what programs you would like to use your funds towards, select what that is. This is just giving us an idea so we know how to prepare the process for the next step. Finally, if you don't qualify under the Ancestor or the direct descendant, you have what we call the housing discrimination application. So this one's a little bit different. It's very straightforward. So we'll go through the questions that we already seen before, your name, address, and so forth. But that's it. The only question that's different is here. Provide documentation of city policy or policies, practices that discriminate against you after 1969. After 1969. And it has to be a city policy or a city practice. It cannot be a third party. It cannot be the private sector. We cannot have it be the federal government or the state. It has to be a city policy or practice that you can show discriminatory practices of after 1969. So if you're able to identify that documentation, then you would upload that information and we will then review that to verify so that we can take appropriate steps, next steps, but that will qualify you. And then of course, the question about with how you want to utilize those funds. And that's it. So those are the three applications. Those are the three, categories within the application. Once you are completed, once the application is complete, we will go through, staff will review the applications. And I have to tell you, as you know, as I said earlier, the application is open and we already received over a dozen applications this morning. This is not first come, first served. So when the applications are coming in, we are not going to be awarding people based on who submit their application the earliest or the soonest. You have until November 5th, just to be equitable, because we recognize that not everyone has access to technology or paperwork or are ready to submit. So what you will get, if something is not correct, you will get an email. A couple people got that this morning, where we reviewed it very quickly and realized that some information that they had was not uploaded properly. We reached out to them and just asked them to provide us with that corrected documentation. So as we're getting the applications in, we're just checking to make sure everything is there. So to give people an opportunity to update and make whatever corrections they need. And then that way, when it's time for us to do our complete review, we will have everything in front of us. We'll create a report that goes to committee, and then the committee will create a randomization process that is be very transparent for for the community members to witness. And so the hope is that by the end of November, we will have the first 16 members of the community identified, and then we will go from there. So with that being said, I just want to give you some other information. So as I mentioned, if you can see the screen, we recognize that the community, not everyone has access to a computer or a mobile phone. Because this is mobile friendly, you are able to use your cell phone if you are able to have a smartphone. We are offering office hours beginning next week at Fleetwood Jourdain Community Center. It will be on Mondays from 10 to 3 and on Tuesdays from 12 to 5. They'll be hosted in the center on the second floor in the computer lab. There will be staff there to support and give you whatever additional support you will need to get your documents scanned in, uploaded, and submitted. So we ask that by the time you're coming to the office hours, if you need to have your documents in hand, so that way this could be a very quick process. If you do need additional resources, like I mentioned earlier, the Evanston Public Library, the main location, the one located downtown, the reference desk on the second floor has information. As stated previously, they have phone directories and city directories starting back from the 1920s. ETHS books between 1932 and 1969. And of course, they have the current ones as well. They even have Evanston Review obituaries. So if you're looking for a resource, the library is a great resource. As we are able to identify additional resources through other community partners, we will also post those information on our city website. If what I'm saying today, you're like, this is interesting, I still need more details about this, the Restorative Housing Program Guidelines details every aspect of this program, the nuts and bolts of how the program is being built, and the outcome for which we're expecting from the program. So if you have any questions, if there's any information that you feel that you need more questions or answered, the guidelines could pretty much answer a lot of those questions. So we have one more community informational on Thursday at the Levy Center. For those who registered, I do believe right now we are maxed out due to COVID. We had to do some spacing restrictions. So I would say for those who are coming to this Thursday, September 23rd meeting, we'll begin at 6 and promptly be done by 7:30. And of course, there's additional information on our website about the committee when we meet. And if you have a policy question or a policy comment, it's really best to direct it to the committee. This program today is really to prepare people around the application and to make sure we're asking the questions that you need answered to feel comfortable with the process, as well as to be ready to apply today. Lastly, some caveats in the program I think you should be aware, just from the conversations that we had with the community, is very important. First, this program is going to be managed so that funds go directly to your financial institution, as well as your contractor or vendor, because we need to ensure that you as the participant do not have any type of tax liability put upon you. We are working directly through that vendor. So tax liability shift from the state and federal level will shift to the vendor and to the financial institution. So this should have no impact on any other programs that might be income-based on you or your family member. Secondly, if you have another family member who wants to apply in your household as at the age of 18 or older, up to 2 people within a household may apply and combine their funds together to equal $50,000. That will happen if you apply, but you have to apply individually, and you have to be qualified individually. For family members who may have shared, for family members who are direct descendants that may have shared documentation, that is fine, as long as you can connect yourself to that individual with that documentation. So a good example that I'm seeing is that someone would have the same document as the qualifier for that person's residency, but then they'll use their obituary and they'll say, well, that's my name in the obituary, and then someone else might be listed in that obituary and they're using that same document. That is fine. This is about the individual, not the household. Lastly, if you are utilizing this fund for any type of construction work on your home, any city permits will be waived as part of this process. So any city permits the fees will be waived, so you will not have to incur those costs. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And if we have any questions, I'm going to ask people to raise their hand so I can see participants. All right, so I see 5 people are raising their hand. If Tashik, if you can go ahead and bring in the first person. Noel?
Yep, Noel.
Yes.
Noel, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, sorry about that. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So I had a question. So I would be trying to qualify through my father, and he lived here in Evanston during that time frame. However, I know that my father and my mother were renting at the time. Like, I was born in Evanston, but that was into the 70s. But I'm just concerned that I would have trouble proving that they lived here as renters, in the 60s. Does that make sense?
Sure, that does. I would say we've been very fortunate to find a lot of those scenarios through the phone books. Individuals were able to identify their parent, either their father or mother, by their phone, the directory, by the city directory, because it lists the actual address and phone number. So I would direct you to the library and see what they can pull up for you. The census data, unfortunately, isn't available for that time frame yet. So I do believe if your parents moved into Evanston in that time frame and didn't go to ETHS high school, that the city directory should be able to identify them.
Okay, but in worst case scenario, in the events that I'm not able to come up with anything, because I will definitely try the resources that you provided, the library and so forth. But like, are you able to, provide like, because my father's deceased now. So like if his siblings, can they write letters to confirm that he lived here, like as supporting evidence, and, have like a notary stamp that? Or, I mean, I'm just trying to think of like some other ways to provide evidence in the event that, because I mean, if you own property, that's a little easier, right? Because there's a record of that. But like when you're a renter, because he's not alive anymore, and quite frankly, even if he was alive, I don't know that he would have, a utility bill from, 50 years ago, so.
Well, I think, like I said, if you cannot find that information using the city directories or phone book to identify your father or mother, then I would ask you to reach out to me directly. We can discuss that further. I don't want to say declarative, like, yes, you can or cannot, but let's talk offline. And you can reach me through krichardson@cityofevanston.org if you would like to talk to me further about that question.
Okay, thank you.
No, thank you. Appreciate the question. Okay, can we bring, we can go ahead and put it back into the panelist mode. And we can bring in Sherry. Okay, give us a second. Tashik was there. Okay, thank
Yes,
you.
give me a second.
You're good. While you do that, I'm gonna try to follow this, see if I can understand.
It is not.
Okay, how are you taking care of that question? Thank you for your patience.
Okay.
All right.
Sherry. You can
You
unmute
go
yourself,
ahead.
Sherry.
Hi, Sherry.
Sherry, you're still on mute. You can unmute yourself.
Oh, can you click a button to let her unmute? There you go. There you go, Sherry. I
Okay.
see you. I hear you now. All right, great.
Okay, great. All right. So I have a couple of questions. On the application, you say to distinguish between whether or not you're a direct descendant or a ancestor. When you say at age 18, do you want to know if we were 18 at the time between 2019 and 1969, or you just want to know if we're 18 presently, or 18 or older presently?
Great question. So both. So the ancestor or the descendant's ancestor had to be 18 at the time between 1919 and 1969. To qualify for the program yourself, you have to be at least the age of 18.
Okay, because I kind of fall in both categories because I think I was maybe 3 at the time. So is it safe to be an ancestor or no?
No, you would be a direct
Okay.
descendant. But your
Okay.
mother or father, if they're still with us, they would qualify then as probably an ancestor, unless they had you as children. Unless they had you if they were a minor, but if they were over the age of 18, they should be able to qualify.
I'm the only family member still living in Evanston. They all have moved on, so they don't qualify anymore, right?
Well, if they are with us on Earth, they qualify. They would have to come back to Evanston, but if they left the state, then they're not planning on coming back, then it would just be you.
Gotcha. Okay, and then my last question is, it says for the proof for direct descendant that I need to prove something from list A, when in fact my birth certificate gives the address where we were living when I was born. Will that suffice?
That'll be fine. You can just upload that twice.
Okay, thank you so much for listening to my questions.
Great questions. Thank you, Sherry. Have a wonderful day. Okay, so there was a question while you pulled the next person up, Tracy. I see there was a person made a comment about being confused about the housing discrimination application. And I'm going to tell you, probably the majority of people participating in this program will not even touch that. It's really a way for us to see if there is policies, because we had a housing, we got the exact title of the program, but we had a commission that's formed. It was a second commission, and really addressed some housing discrimination issues that were occurring within the city. And that report came out in the 1960s, late 1960, 1969. So the actuality is, if there were other housing discriminatory practices that the city was engaged in, we want to make sure we know what those were, because we need to see if they're still in the books. We haven't yet, as staff, come across anything that will qualify, but maybe the community member has. And so it's there as a carve out, but at the same time, we recognize that the majority of people who are going to apply will not probably apply for that program. They're going to apply for that category. They're going to only apply for the ancestor or the direct descendant, because it does not require you to have to prove housing discriminatory practices. It just has to prove that you were a resident or a descendant of a resident of Evanston during that time frame. Go ahead, Tracy. If you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay. So I kind of had two questions. I have 2 grandparents and 2 great-grandparents that lived in Evanston pretty much their whole lives. Should I list all of them or pick one or two?
Just pick one.
Okay,
Whoever's
And then-
easy to get information.
whoever what?
Whoever information is the easiest for you to have or obtain, choose that person.
I just recently did Ancestry.com, so I have a bunch of information for all of them, but I'll pick one. And then the other question was, I heard earlier the mention of a maximum of 2 family members combining. Is the option available, in the real estate world? I happen to be a realtor living in another state. Up to 4 units is considered still residential. Let's say, for example, I have several cousins who are great grands and grands of direct descendants who currently live together and would want to purchase, let's say, for example, if possible, a duplex or a triplex. Is that an option to combine the proceeds from more than 2 people?
So 2
who are
people is the
descendants.
max.
Two's
So
the max.
2 people
Okay.
is the max, but even if they
Okay.
live in a duplex or a multi-unit, it would still be 2
Yes.
people. Mhm.
I hear what you're saying, but I don't know. Can you explain that a little better? I'm not
That's
catching
the policy. I mean,
caveat.
so I'm just being very clear, like that's the policy as written. So, I can't go any further than that, but regardless of how one is in the household, regardless if it's a single family home or multi-unit, only up to 2 members of the household. So if
Okay.
a family member in a multi-unit wants to combine with a relative on the second floor, they can. There won't be a third person that will be able to do so. So it's only 2 people per the property, not
Okay.
per the unit.
Okay. So even if it were, let's just say hypothetically, a triplex, and there were 6 people, there could still only be a maximum of 2. Is that what I understand you to say?
That is correct.
Okay. I just wanted to be crystal clear about that. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for your question. Stephanie?
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine. Thank you for taking my questions. My first question is, do you have maybe an approximate date when the funds would be distributed?
I do not, because that's going to dictate on the committee process for approval. But the goal is, I know there's a goal of either late December or January. Hopefully it'll be first quarter of 2022 or at the end of 2021.
Okay, thank you. And my second question is, if I'm a descendant, am I required to live in Evanston? If it's 2 parts, sorry.
Okay, sorry.
So my mother would be considered an ancestor. She's living in Evanston currently, and I am not. I'm a descendant. So how would that work?
So you are able to apply. However, in order for you as the descendant to receive the funds, it has to be in the household that you primarily live in. So your primary residence in Evanston. So you would have to live in Evanston in order for you to be able to utilize that fund. Your mother, who's currently an Evanston resident, she will be able to utilize that fund as well if she owns the property that she lives in, or if she lives in the property that she lives in, and let's say she has to live in that property. Yes, so she has to live in the property, you have to live in the property, and they both have to be in Evanston. Does that make sense? Stephanie? Oh, she left. Okay. Oh, all right. So Vola, did I pronounce it correct?
Yes, you did.
All right. How are you, ma'am?
I'm well. My question is, I'm a 4th generation Evanstonian. My mother, who is living, is a class of 48. Her brother and sister is class of 46 and 47 from Evanston Township High School. Of those people, when you say two, you're not, say they have 15 or 16 direct descendants. They're not living in the same household. Each one can apply. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, that's my question. Because when you said limited to two people, because there's so many descendants, I just want to make sure that each person is able to apply. And of their descendants, our children, if they're not in the same household, because they're direct descendants, are they able to apply as well?
As long as they're 18 years of age and they meet the criteria as listed, yes.
Okay, so we're talking about maybe 60 people.
Okay, well, those 60 people have to apply and then they will go through the process of review.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
No, thank you. Eve? And if you have any questions, please raise your hand because it's hard to follow the chat. So that's why we're having you come online. You don't have to show your face. We just have to hear your wonderful voices. So I'm gonna let Eve ask her question. Thank you, Eve, for being here today, this afternoon.
Thank you so much for having this. It's awesome. The only negative is that the pamphlet I had that was handed out by Bonnie Lockhart, it said it was at 1 today. Not 12.
Oh, Eve, I'm sorry to hear that. But here's the thing, if you need to go over this separately, please reach out to me and I will gladly walk you through this if you need some additional questions answered.
Yeah. Yes, and then I wanted to ask you, are you going to be releasing the recording of this? Because I know you're recording
Yes.
it.
So
And
this
you'll
is
do-
going to be recorded. Yes, as we announced at the beginning of this, this meeting has been recorded and we're going to have it posted sometime later this week on the Reparations website, which is cityofelvanston.org/reparations. And Tashika, go ahead and post that into the chat as well.
Okay, super. My second question has to do with district. I was a child, so District 65 lost records. I don't think I'm in the phone book. I mean, I don't think my parents would be in the phone book because we were back in those days in the 60s. You were a boarder. You rented from Black people that own houses, but you were a boarder. So you didn't have a phone in your name or anything like that.
Okay.
So that's one point. And then the second point is that must the money go only to buy a house? That's the one contention that most people have with this program, is that you're forcing us to go buy a house. If you don't own a house presently, then you got to be able to qualify for a mortgage by November 4th to put in your application to get money by December.
Sure. So the program is multi-layered. It's just not about purchasing a home. Now, yes, do you have to be a homeowner or at least currently occupy a home for which you have the ability to make changes or renovations to? Yes. So this program is the first program. And I just want to be clear, this is not the only housing program that is going to be developed over the course of the next 10 years. It's just the first one. And so this one has been at the direction of the committee at the time. This was directed towards those who are property owners because of the need to invest in Black homes, and the equity in Black homes was the focus of this program. So if you are currently in the process of acquiring a loan or going through the process of being able to purchase a home, yes, this fund will be able to help support that down payment assistance on top of any other programs that you're utilizing for that assistance. If you currently own the home and you want to take your home and purchase a washer and dryer, refrigerator, or put a roof over your house, or do some type of home expansion, or fix a garage, or fix whatever you want that's a part of your home that is going to bring value to your home, this program is part of that. If you want to use this funds for mortgage assistance because I can't use this to pay my taxes, however, I can use this money in a way that can help me put some more cash in my pocket. So what I can do is say, okay, I have 12 months to spend this funds. And that's another point I did not make. You have 12 months to spend the funds. Your clock does not start until the second phase of this process starts. So it doesn't start the day after the 5th. It doesn't start the day that you are acknowledged to have received funds. It starts the day that we go through the process of identifying how the funds are going to be used and us walking through a plan. So what I'm telling you is that these funds can be used for your mortgage assistance. And there's people who have said, you know what, this would be a great opportunity for me to be able to pay installments to my mortgage, pay more on my mortgage, and I can keep that money to pay other bills, other issues that have come up, put it to savings or whatnot. Or I can use these funds to purchase, a washer and dryer because that's what I've been needing. You have the ability to use that funds outside of just purchasing a home if you already own your home. And you have up to 25,000. So if you choose at some point to say, I don't want to do any more of that, I didn't use all the 25,000, then there will be another piece of document that you will fill out saying that I forfeit the remainder of that fund. Because you have been selected for this funding does not preclude you for accessing additional funds later down the road through other programs. This is just for this program only. This eligibility application is for this program only. If in the future there's other programs around housing that is not this type of layout of eligibility, it may have something else. It may incorporate other years. It may incorporate renters. Then if you apply for this and that program opens and you qualify for that program as well, because you receive this money today does not preclude you from receiving funds in the future as new programs are developed through the Reparations Initiative.
Okay, that was a very long answer. But it was bottom line is this. This is what everyone's complaining about. I'm not complaining, I'm just explaining. The problem with housing in Evanston is that housing is too expensive. So you could barely afford the rent. And now you're forcing people in order to utilize this money, you're forcing people into purchasing a home that you can't qualify for to begin with. And you're assuming that there's going to be additional programs.
There is going to be additional programs, ma'am, because this is the first program. The city council only budgeted $400,000 for this program. This program has a finite end, and that's going to be on November 5th. So if you say, well, I don't plan on purchasing a home, I don't plan on utilizing this program because I don't fit the criteria, I'm telling you, this is the first program. So you may not be able to participate in this program. It doesn't mean, and trust me, this has been a conversation that the committee has been discussing. It doesn't mean that we are not thinking about those community members who are in a different state where they don't own their home or they aren't able to participate in this program. They are, but today's conversation is about this program and how it's going to be implemented. And your question really needs to go to the committee to talk more about how to ensure future programs are going to involve renters as well as those who may not own their home currently. So I hear what you're saying. This program, I'm sorry, the way it's written, if you're not planning on owning a home at this time, you can still qualify, you can still be eligible. I would not dissuade you from doing that. I'm just letting you know that this is the way the program is structured, but this is only the first program. This is not the last program.
Okay, so what you're saying is they've decided that there will be additional programs. This is just for the 400K that you guys just allocated. I got you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, super duper. Thank you.
Thank you, Eve. Appreciate your comments.
Kimberly, there are other
yes.
individuals who have raised their hand, but I think they're dialing in, so I'm not able to bring them into the panelists view. So I'll unmute them after Ms. Baden has
Okay,
asked her
thank
question.
you. Ms. Payton, go ahead.
Hello, Ms. Baden, we can't hear you.
There you go. I hear noise. All right.
I'm gonna go ahead and mute Denise Martin.
Can you go ahead and mute Payton for now, and then let's see if we can get a hold of her.
Okay.
All right, Ms. Martin, how may I answer your question today? Hello? Denise Martin? She's muted.
I've asked her to unmute.
Okay, there she goes. Denise Martin?
Can't hear you. Okay, I'm gonna bring in Rosemary Campbell.
Okay. Rosemary?
Yes, can you hear me?
Oh, I hear you loud and clear. Thank you for being here.
Okay, I won't talk so loud then. But I think I have two questions. I'm born and raised in Evanston, Illinois. I could qualify as for ancestor or direct descendant, but I don't live in Evanston. So I wouldn't qualify to get anything that the reparation that they're offering at this time. Is that correct?
That is correct. As this current program is structured, you have to live in Evanston at the time of you receiving funds. So if you did not live in Evanston, but you plan to move back, you can still apply. But if you choose to not come back to Evanston, you would not be able to utilize the funds.
Okay. My second question then is, since I do qualify and I did live during that time frame that they were discrimination, went through the school system, a whole 10 yards, what are they going to do for people who have moved out of town and are really should be entitled to some form of reparation? They have another thing they're going to do for us?
Well, that's a good question that I will direct you to the committee to discuss, because they're the ones that create the policy. But I do know that we are currently looking at how do we maintain the community that we have right now in Evanston. And that's been the focal point of just wanting to have a program that is going to help retain those homes of Black ownership, home ownership in Evanston. As to future programs, those are all on the table.
Okay, will we be notified of the future programs?
Well, as they are going through the process of approval, we will go through the same process we did with this, where it had to go through a committee approval process, a city council approval process, and then at the time of implementation, continue having discussions like these.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
Thank you.
Ms.
Okay,
Payton?
we'll go back to them at the end. Can you go ahead to the next person, please?
Yep.
And I want to be mindful of the time. I see we have 14 people with their hands raised. I am going to, those 14 that are raised, we're going to go ahead and answer your questions. If we have time for more questions, I'll let you all know. But if you have raised your hand and we are going down the list, I'm looking at the time, and so I want to be mindful that we do have a hard end time. So I want to make sure we get through everyone. So go ahead and call the next person.
Is Rose Campbell?
We just did Rosemary Campbell.
Carol Williams?
Yes.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone.
Hi.
My name is Carol Colbert Williams, and I definitely qualify as a direct descendant. I'm third generation. And I am in Illinois, but I am not in Evanston. Now, the question, I think you've answered some of my questions by the other questions that were asked. But my question is, I am going to be retiring, and I would like to come home when I retire. Can I use that $25,000 to purchase a condo when I come back?
Yes.
Oh, great.
But you have to apply within this time frame. So you have until November 5th to apply, but as soon as you apply, you will then be reviewed for eligibility. But if you do not apply within that time frame, I can't guarantee the program is going to reopen applications again. So I would ask that you apply and then go forth as you see fit.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Leave Cook is next. Leave Cook, you may unmute yourself.
While Leave is unmuting themselves, there was a question about what if you have a homeowner's loan within the last month, can you use these funds to pay off the loan? Yes. As long as it's going to a financial institution, yes. Okay. Who's next?
Leave.
Sylvia?
Yep, Sylvia could go ahead.
Go ahead.
Hi, thank you very much for taking my question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good, good. I wanted to know, I'm a current homeowner in Evanston. I recently bought a condo. It's been about a year. My sister and I qualify for the program, so we both will apply, and we currently live together. So that will be $50,000, providing we're selected and accepted. If I want to buy another home, a freestanding home, because I'm currently in a condo, can the funds be used to purchase a home with our combined reparations funds and the sale of our current condo?
So it has to go to whichever one is going to be your primary residence. So if you're looking to purchase a new home with this, it will go towards that.
Right.
If you're looking to pay off your condo so you can have the proceeds, it will go towards that. So it will be one or the other property.
Yeah, it would be the home, the freestanding that we want to buy. We wouldn't need the funds to pay off this. We would just, sell it, and the proceeds combined with reparations to buy a freestanding home in Evanston. So this has been very helpful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So you're welcome. Have a nice day. So I'm just looking at the questions. Do you have to live in the house for a certain time after receiving the money? You must, at least within that first year or so, you have to be the primary residency of your home during the duration of the funds being dispersed. So I believe that is addressed in the guidelines on the duration. I'll have to look exactly at that question. And then to it being a lien, no, will be a lien on the home. There is a caveat to that. I will make sure I get that answer to you as well, but it will not be considered a lien. When will you know if two people are approved for the, we will not know until after the randomization process of the committee is identified. So at this point, I don't have an answer to when you will know for an individual or for individuals who want to pull their funds together. With that, Julia Woodson.
Julia, can you unmute yourself?
Hi, so I'm just wondering if you have to, so the time that you do the application, is that also the time when you get approved with the lender to see if you're even eligible to purchase a home? Or do you guys get the money before?
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. To your point, if you're going through the process of purchasing a home, I would say you should start that process today to know what you're eligible for, what not. This funds is not contingent on you having approval of any type of home purchase. However, you have up to a year to utilize this fund. So if you are in the midst of identifying and getting a home and as well as a financial lender, that will be a process that you have to take separately from this. But once you have done so and you have a home and a contract and you know how much you need to put down, then that fund will be able to be used towards that. As to your eligibility, you have two other programs to use it for if you do not use it for home ownership.
Okay, because I believe the approval process only lasts 30 days. Is that correct with the lender? So would it make more sense to wait to get approved, if approved with you all, since it may not happen with, like, if I were to apply for a mortgage loan now and I'm approved, it expires after so long, but what if I'm not approved from you all within the time that it expires? So that
Yeah.
would be me running my credit again. And
Well,
ahead.
again, I would leave it to your discretion on how you feel best suited to move forward. The program application process starts now and it will end November 5th. And how and when people are identified, I just want to be very transparent. We're talking about $400,000 right now. $400,000 does not go a long way. That covers, as many of you know, 16 people if everyone took the full 25,000. The goal, though, is to go back to City Council to say, here's the finite number of people that qualify for the program. Can we budget up to that dollar amount? But I also want to be very clear, because funding is coming through the receipts of our 3% of cannabis tax. We only have one dispensary in Evanston. And so that dispensary currently is covering a program. And so if we don't have the funds available because we don't have the proceeds coming in as quickly as we can, that can slow down the process of expanding beyond 16 people. So I want to be very transparent in that. It's no guarantee that you get funding right away unless you are an ancestor, as ancestors are going to be the first ones that will receive funds. And then it'll go to the direct descendant second, and then those who are housing discrimination third. So if you figure that, I think that should give you an idea of how you should proceed at this time.
Okay, so it may make a little more sense to get qualified with you all first if I don't want to keep running my credit and then
Correct.
get approved for a mortgage loan.
That, if that's how you feel that's appropriate for you, I would say that do what you feel is appropriate.
Thank you.
To go back to the question that Ms. Payton had answered, so the city will record a memorandum of grant along with any other document recorded. It is not the same as a lien to enforce notice of sale. So that way we are able to know when notice of sale has happened or refinance or property association with the sale has occurred. But there is no lien on the property from the city as it relates to this particular program.
Leaf
and like I
Cook?
said, it's not preclude you from other programs. All right.
I think Leaf Cook is able to speak now.
Okay, go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Leif Cook.
Leif.
So my question is, what happened if you have like multi-generational people living in one address? That's first and foremost. Or if you're like, let's say your descendant, your ancestor has, several descendants who could apply. Is only two of them going to get picked, or only two of them can own a property together, or three? I know three can't, but two can. So like, let's say we have multiple people in the same family, they still live in the same house. Would all of them be able to apply? So like, let's say if it's four of us in one house, we all share the same ancestor. That ancestor is still alive. Can all four of us apply?
So does the ancestor live in the household too?
Yes.
All right, so I would say that one, again, it's up to two people within the household. So only two people in the household would benefit from this program. This program. I would recommend that one of those individuals be the ancestor because they are the ones that are going to have first priority. And then anyone else in the household that you all deem to be the direct descendant. But no, everyone in that household, unless they plan to leave the household and have a second and have a different home as their primary residency, would be able to qualify.
All right. And so for the people that are, because we share an ancestor and some of us live out of state. So for the ones that live out of state who may be planning to come back to Evanston, how would that work for them? Because wouldn't they need to establish a residency in Evanston first or no?
No, they can apply first because as you see, the application process is now open and it's a definite end date. They can apply, however, funds will not be dispersed unless we have proof or evidence that they are currently living in Evanston in a home or they're in the midst of a purchase of a home.
Okay, totally understand. All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Willie Edwards.
Yes. Good. How you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Okay, I just want to be clear on the ancestors. Okay, that's the person that's born between 1919 and 1969.
Correct.
Okay, because I was born in 1961, so that would make me my sister and my brother. They would be ancestors.
No, so you had to been 18 at the
18
time.
at that time. Okay, so
Correct.
we have to fill. So we fill out
The direct descendant.
direct descendant. Okay, that was my question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and two of us are in the same household, but the other one has his own house. So the two of us could fill out together and then he could fill out separately.
So everybody needs to fill out their own application. There are no pooled applications, so you can't fill out a joint application. Every person will have to complete the application individually. What happens is at the time of when we identify the recipients of funds, if at that time you want to pull the funds together, you can, but at this time, everyone needs to complete the application separately.
Okay, all right, that was my question.
No, that's a good question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Rose Cannon?
Hi, can you hear me?
Sure can.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
I just have, the only portion of the program that I would be interested in would be the purchase of a home in Evanston because I don't own anything currently. And I would qualify as an ancestor and I have two descendants that will probably apply too. My question is, at what point, if we were accepted and I guess I'm trying to figure out what the process is. After we apply, then it goes on to your committee and then you put us in a group of people that have qualified and then in some way you select the 14 or the 15 people. Is that correct? That I understand correctly?
Sure, and I'll be even clearer so that everyone understands that second step. So once the applicants have submitted the application, staff, being myself and Tashik, will go through everyone's application to verify that the documents that they submit qualifies them. We will then provide a report to the committee. Now, to ensure that there is transparency in this process, the committee does not receive the names of the participants who qualify. Every participant that submits an application gets a unique ID number. So that's what we are going to provide the committee is with that unique ID number along with any additional information that they requested that doesn't identify the person by name or by address. This is so that when they do their randomization process, they're doing without having any information who the individuals are. So there's no hope, the goal is to try to take out any bias in the process. And the randomization process, then once we identify who those individuals are, we will then associate the names with the person. So that way, as they're going through the process of selection, staff's role is to just verify that everyone has their paperwork properly submitted and that they do provide the right documentation to qualify them. Then that report is created to the committee, and then the committee will then go through their process of selection.
one additional question. We've been hearing that you folks are going to use a lottery system to select the people, and this is what you're referring to as the randomization period. Is that correct? Am I understanding that correctly?
So correct, just as it written in the guidelines, it states that after 16, if more than 16 people qualify, because we know we have 16, there will be a randomization process that will be identified and created or identified by the committee as the process for selection. That means that everyone, let's say if you are an ancestor, you will only be in a pool with those who are ancestor. You will not be combined with direct descendants. And so we will then we will pull those names or IDs out and put them in the order that they are identified. And then now will be the ranking for which those individuals will be listed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand that. But at what point are you able to evaluate the credit of the folks that have been selected via this Ancestor in the Ancestor randomization group?
Did you say credit, ma'am?
Yeah, I mean, how do you have to credit qualify in order to purchase a home? So
well, ma'am, we're not lenders, so I just want to be very clear.
No, I understand that, but you will have people selected out in this group, say like out of the Ancestor group, and someone qualifies in that group. So then I'm trying to understand this. They go out and they find their own mortgage themselves. Is that correct?
They will have to be able to, at the time of disbursement, be in a contract for which then the funds will be dispersed. We are not going to be in the business of qualifying people, credit check, no different than you going to any other program that's a home buyer's assistance program. All we're doing is providing the funds at the time of closing. So there will be no credit check by the city. The city's job is only to provide the financial institution the funds that's been requested by the individual, the homeowner applicant. Okay. As it relates to other programs, because we have to remember, this is not a home buyers program only. You still have two other programs that's a part of this that relates to home improvement as well as to your mortgage assistance. So individuals, at no time are we asking for any information that relates to a credit check or social security number, any of that information that is required for financial institutions to be able to talk to each other. That will happen separately from this process, and that is not a part of this particular application process.
Okay, one last question. What happens if the folks that you've selected and qualified through your randomization project, what if they get to their banks and they can't qualify? What means do you have then? Will you have means to bring other people up to fill their spaces? If those people get to their banks and they say, no, you don't qualify, or we don't want to do business with you?
Well, if the individual at the time that they have been selected are not prepared to move forward with the program, we will keep them in the process, but we will move on to the next person. I mean, at the end of the day, they have a year to spend the funds, but if they're trying to obtain a loan and in the process of doing it, and in doing so, they're not ready, we're not going to just sit on the funds. We want to get the money out to the community. And so we will continue to go through the process of the next individual, but they will not be eliminated. They will not be, removed. Unless they forfeit and say, I decided not to move forward with the program, then they forfeit. That's a separate process that they have to go through. The idea though, is that we will go through that every person. The goal is that we want to be able to go to city council and say, we need more money to fund this program so that we can ensure everyone that's been qualified will get funding in a timely fashion.
Thank you. That answers my question.
Thank you, Ms. Cannon. If we have a couple more, I'm looking at the time, so we have about 5 minutes left. So I want to go ahead and go to Stephanie Smith.
Actually, you've answered my question. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, nice. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that. I think we've hit everyone. Have we, Divine? I think is a person we haven't.
I'm
spoken.
here. I'm here.
Okay,
Thank
go
you.
ahead.
First and foremost, thank you, Kimberly, for your patience and your dedication and your time, because I know what you're doing takes a lot, a whole lot. So thank you. What I wanted to understand is you talked about the 400K that was allocated from the cannabis tax. What I want to understand with the current dispensary that you have, is that a white dispensary or a Black dispensary? And the reason why I'm asking, because it seems kind of insane if we're taking money from a Black dispensary to give what we're calling reparations to Black people.
Well, the money is not being taken. The money is part of the state requirements. So the 3%, it was going to go to the state or to the city. So I'd rather come back to us locally than go to the state of Illinois. So it's part of, let's just say 3% of the bigger picture. I think the state is like 20-some% tax on cannabis. So as to who owns, I can't speak to the ownership. I'm gonna say realistically, looking at the news in the paper, the person is probably owned by a white entity. I definitely would think that. But as we expand to include additional dispensaries, that being owned by people of color, especially people of African American descent, that 3% is going to be taxed. So why not bring it to help us as a community versus going to the larger state? So can't speak more to that policy, but I just, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. And I would love to talk to you offline more about it. The other thing I wanted to understand is with the historical work that Evanston is doing, when it comes down to the home buyership, are there community partners that have come involved, like HUD as well as banks, to help with, because the question has kept coming up throughout this whole conversation. So have you all partnered with someone yet to be able to help support that?
So to that end, we've had partnerships already in place prior to even this program. And we'll continue to, as people are coming into the program, and those who need additional support, educational support, there has been discussion at the committee level. They are bringing back another program that they did a couple of years ago prior to COVID. That was part of the Black Realtors Association, I believe, that really came and support and help our Black community members with how to navigate the landscape when it comes to home buyership and so forth. And so the committee is working on some type of program that should be coming in the next few months. I'm hoping in the first quarter of 2022.
Okay, one last question, Kimberly. So does Evanston actually have a data head count of how many Black homeowners there are within the city?
I mean, that varies. I mean, we have a head count, but you have a census that's finalizing itself right now. So, I mean, our census would give us the data that shows that our ownership of Black ownership has definitely decreased. We're seeing that ownership decrease across the Chicagoland area, but particularly in Evanston. That's why this was the first program. The first focus of the previous committee was around home ownership, because we did see people leaving Evanston who owned homes, who left their homes because either they couldn't keep up with the mortgage or other purposes, taxes, and so forth. So yes, we are going to see a census that probably will show a dip in the home ownership of Black Evanstonians.
Thank you, Kimberly.
No worries. And please feel free to reach out to us. We have no problem answering additional questions.
Oh, I will.
Very good. With that, I believe we spoke to everyone who's in the queue already. So I want to thank everyone who's taken the time today to be a part of this discussion and asking very good questions. Please, I think in the chat, you do see the reparations email address as well as the phone number. Do not hesitate to reach out to us. We are going to be around, available for answering questions, to assist in any way possible. Our next reparations committee meeting is going to be the first Thursday of October, which is the 7th. And so I hope you all are able to attend. And if there's any other questions, please feel free to reach out to myself or to Sheik via reparations@cityofevanston.org, or you can go through 311 and reach us by phone. So with that, we're going to go ahead and end the discussion today. And again, we appreciate all the questions and keep them coming. We want you all to be able to be well informed. And so have a wonderful rest of your day, and thank you all for participating.